Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I want to thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. Well, last week, a very important vote went down during Commissioners Court. El Pasoans from one end of the county to the other are talking about county commissioners and the county judge voting to give themselves a 16% pay raise. Once the pay raise goes into effect, commissioners will go from earning almost $115,000 a year to a little more than $133,000 a year. And the county judge, well, he'll go up by $150,000 a year. Add to that, Commissioners Court voted to increase property taxes as well. Joining me to talk about the county commissioners' pay raises is County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. As mentioned, he too approved a pay raise for himself. Also joining us from Austin is Veronica Carvajal. Ms. Carvajal was asked by Commissioner Holguin to speak on her behalf. As you well know by now, Commissioner Holguin was the lone dissenting vote against the pay raises. Ms. Carvajal is also a member of Justicia Fronteriza, a group taking a close look at the pay raises. County Judge, let's start with you. You have been very open about the pay raises, and you've essentially taken the bulls by the horn and continue to defend those pay raises. How much backlash have you gotten for doing this?
Well, it's not the backlash. I think, and I'm not trying to justify it. I think this is really important. My objective today is not to justify, but put things in the proper perspective, because I think that we're slanted quite a bit. For example, you know, the HR process has been taking place way before I started, and they bring that up to Commissioners Court. On 3 occasions, we carved out our increases and gave the elected officials, we gave them an increase and carved ourselves out on 3 different occasions. So since 2019, we haven't done that. We haven't increased taxes, and also, you know, not even 0.7% of the money that we'll be receiving because of the increase in taxes will actually go to salaries. And you know, we do lag. Maybe we're about 9th. We lag behind other counties. And that doesn't justify anything at all. But I would love to, to be able to put the salary just for a little while, just put it aside, and recall the fact that, you know, we have $34 million to do some great improvements, infrastructure. And if we don't address the fact that 70% of our burden falls on the property tax owners, and the only way you're going to improve that is by more companies coming into El Paso, which will increase the burden to them. If you look at San Antonio and some of the other bigger cities, 70% of the burden falls on commercial and 30% on the property owner. So this is a catch-22. I mean, we have to increase taxes in order to address the fact that inflation, you know, we met for strategic planning back in March, and we didn't want to increase taxes because it didn't make sense.
Okay,
but we have a lot of inflation that obviously we have to take into consideration.
We'll delve more into that in just a bit, but Ms. Carvajal, I want your opinion and the viewers' stand, as well as Justicia Fronteriza's view on the pay raises. What are you all, what are you all saying, and what are you all looking into in terms of those pay raises? I mean, of course, as the judge just mentioned, the property taxes are needed for infrastructure, but what about the pay raises?
Well, and to be clear, taxpayers know how to do math, right? So we understand that the combined tax increases are now, the combined salary increases result in about $688,000, which is less than 1% of the county's budget. We understand that. No one who called in complained about the increased salaries for the lowest paid county employees, because people in El Paso can relate to working class folks. And so that we need to just really, dismiss that in terms of the feedback for what the taxpayers were saying. I think what happens when someone does have a salary that is that high is that they become disconnected from the financial reality of the taxpayers. So that increase, coupled with the commissioners choosing the highest tax rate to impose on the same residents, is what really made this challenging for us, and we had to speak out. The fact is that the commissioners are comparing themselves to other counties. The most relevant taxing entity right now is the city of El Paso. I pay taxes to both the city and the county. So I want us to talk about the salaries of the city council and the mayors. They had to go before voters in 2018 to get a pay raise. And the pay raise went from $29,000 to $45,000. And now it's increased because of the inflation. But that is really the relevant comparison, not other counties. The city has a budget of $1 billion. The county has a budget of $600 million, less. And so we need to really think about how we can benefit the taxpayers. As the judge was saying, we carry the heaviest burden.
Well, let's pose a question to the judge himself. Ms. Carvajal just brought up the fact that the city representatives, before they give themselves a pay raise, they have to ask voters. What about the county? Did you all propose this to the taxpayers, to the county residents, and would you consider doing that?
Well, obviously, we would consider doing that, but let's be fair. You've got 8 representatives. Those 8 representatives have offices, they have staff, they have expenses, and so you can't compare, 8 representatives to 4 different commissioners and myself. So it's an unfair comparison to say that.
And you're saying that you work more than the representatives because by virtue of the fact that you don't have staff.
Well, we have a larger area. We also have a jail. We also have a hospital that they don't have. And if you look at the statutes and what we have to do for the state, we make some very difficult decisions on ourselves. We do not pass them to the city manager, as their charter indicates. So we have to deal with all the statutes, all of the unfunded mandates that we get. We're on a constant discussion and fighting with the state, trying to pass all of these things that they want us to do here in El Paso, yet they don't fund us. So it's a continuous thing. So comparing the city to the county and the dynamics of the government just talks a lot about the fact that people don't totally realize or understand the differences between the two entities.
Okay, I will give Ms. Carvajal an opportunity to respond to that, but we have to go to break right now. When you're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition, we reached out to El Pasoans and asked them about the pay raises as well as the increase in property taxes. Well, you'll get the response. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition, where news comes first.
I feel like if they can actually go to sleep at night and feel like they deserve the pay raise, then that might be all said and done, like it's not bad. But the other part is, a lot of people around here are working hard for the money and they feel like we could use a pay raise.
Level up your career today. Don't wait until 2024. Enroll now at Southwest University. Start your new career in the medical field. Serve your community and enroll now by September 22nd in the nursing, sonography, or radiology programs. We offer flexible schedules and short terms so you can finish faster. Grow your mindset and career and learn all the core values to succeed in the nursing, sonography, or radiology fields. For more information, visit us at southwestuniversity.edu. Last day to enroll is September 22nd. Southwest University. Start today.
The new 2023 GMC Sierra AT4X is equipped to conquer the great outdoors. Or the great indoors. Welcome to the peak of premium off-roading. Or get 0.9% APR, plus over $1,700 purchase allowance and no monthly payments for 90 days on 2023 Sierra Elevation 5.3-liter V8 light-duty models.
It's Mattress Firm's best Labor Day sale ever. Save $700 on select Tempur-Pedic adjustable sets. Plus save $800 on select Stearns & Foster adjustable set. And get a $300 instant gift with either. Shop Sealy and save up to $700. Plus get a free adjustable base. Sleepy's by Sealy Pillow Top Queens just $4.99. Mattress Firm Direct Twins start at just $179. We offer free 3-hour same-day delivery and 0% interest for 72 months.
Mattress Firm, where it's easy to get a great night's sleep.
They're here. McDonald's best burgers ever. They're hotter, with the cheese deliciously melted. And they're juicier, with the patties cooked to juicy perfection. Yes, they're tastier, with a pillowy, soft, golden bun. They're... Rubble, rubble. Looks like we've been hamburgled. These are our best burgers ever. Rubble, rubble. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. I also want to welcome back my guest. County Judge Ricardo Samaniego has mentioned he too approved a pay raise for himself. Despite all the criticism, the judge is taking the issue head on. Also joining us from Austin is Veronica Carvajal. Ms. Carvajal was asked by Commissioner Holguin to speak on her behalf. As you all know by now, Commissioner Holguin was the lone dissenting vote against the pay raises. Ms. Carvajal is also a member of Justicia Fronteriza, a group taking a closer look at the pay raises. Now, Ms. Carvajal, before we went to break, you heard the county judge talk about all what they don't have a staff. They have many more projects. They have the hospital and they have the county jail. They have so much more to do. Is that your opinion on that?
Well, it's my understanding that there are staff members. I've spoken to the staff members for the for Commissioner Holguin as well as Stout. Now, in terms of, there's UMC is a separate taxing entity, right? So we get taxed by UMC, the county, the city, the school districts, and community college. And so it is, I think, misleading to say that the county has the burden of the hospital when it's its own taxing entity. Going back to the city, the organization really has advocated for the city and the county working together to reduce taxes. I don't understand why I pay for the sheriff as well as the police department. Law enforcement is the biggest segment of the budget for both entities, and it does feel like a duplication of services that I personally do not use because I live within the city. I call 911. PD shows up, not the sheriff, but I'm paying for the sheriff anyway. There are things that I think we could be doing a lot better. And so there was pushback from Commissioner Stout about our statement to spend wisely. We understand that budgets are complicated. We're not trying to reduce the quality of services. I think that we have to recognize that we are paying, incredibly high taxes already because property values went up. From 2019 to now, they've gone up 25%, even in the colonias, even in Segundo Barrio, in San Javier, the Chamizal, the poorest neighborhoods have also seen increases. I know this because of the work that I do. And so you can pull up anyone's house in the 79905 zip code, and you'll see that their assessed values went up from, say, $40,000 to now $70,000. That increases their taxes. And so the very people that everyone is purporting to want to help are the ones that are being taxed the most. They often don't know about exemptions. They don't know about protests. And so this is, not only are we asking residential taxpayers to bear the burden, it's the lowest often, lowest income residential people or residential property owners that are paying the biggest burden in comparison to the rest. And so again, they had different options. They could have gone with a lower tax rate. Staff told them they could and still create revenue, and they chose not to.
Okay. Well, Judge Samaniego, Ms. Carvajal, I did some research looking at Texas counties that have a similar sized population as El Paso. Very similar, not exactly the same, and compared what county judges and commissioners in those counties earn. A Collin County judge earns $159,000 a year, while commissioners earn $114,000 a year. The Fort Bend County judge earns $145,000 a year, commissioners $145,000, and Hidalgo County, the judge there earns $118,000, while commissioners earn $101,000 a year. And all these figures come from Texas Association of Counties for the 2020 salary survey. And you mentioned, Judge, earlier that you haven't all gotten a pay raise since 2019. So let's talk about those comparisons, because that's one of the things that you've been advocating the most, is that other counties, county judges as well as county commissioners earn pretty much more than you all do, than El Paso County commissioners do. So is that the point of reference that you've been giving?
Yeah, the comparison is not the pivotal point. And to be clear, I've always said, we have a system, we respect our HR system. They proposed it. We did not just raise our own taxes. But I want to be clear about duplication. Once again, this is not understanding county government. There's statutes that don't allow us to do certain things. We can't combine law enforcement as easy as you think that they can be done. There's a lot of things that we do because we're the county. Think about it. I've got from Vinton all the way to Sanelli, and there's other municipalities that I have to deal with and interact with, not just the city. And so this idea, Leo Samaniego have been wanting to combine that, and if not that, just the training itself, an academy, just use the same academy. We teach them mental health, we teach them how to deal, and even that has become an issue, and resistance. And so I know a lot of things seem simple, but I can tell you the county government is probably one of the most complicated governments that you'll see in any category, and
Let's
we
talk
have
about,
to work with that.
Yeah, let's talk about optics, and this is something that you also can weigh in on, Ms. Carvajal. The optics, the fact that you all raised property taxes the day after you all approved pay raises. The optics alone are questionable because it makes you look like, all right, I need a pay raise, and because of that, I'm raising taxes. That's not the case, right, Judge? I mean, is it the case?
Well, it isn't, because it was brought up to us. Every year they're brought up and they say this is where we think you should be. Our philosophical premise is that we're at least 80% compared to others. And it's brought up to us 3 times in a row. We carved ourselves out, gave elected officials their increase, didn't give ourselves an increase. There's solidarity. You have to work with what people are wanting to do. There was one person that voted against, and like I said, that person has all the possibilities of returning the money. She could donate it back to the county, and then she doesn't have to be at the ribbon cutting when we use the $34,000 for infrastructure, for helping. This is a situation of equality, because the ones that get burdened the most by not raising the taxes are the people in the colonias, because they have no other venues. They have no revenue to help them. We can't do the infrastructure. So yes, it's equality. Some people are going to pay more, but the benefit is really going to hit the hardest. Benefit that we'll get from the increase will be the colonias, because some of them are not paying property taxes. They pay the least amount of taxes, but they're going to get the services that are, right now, they're in dire need. So sometimes I don't understand how it's okay not to look at the colonias and what we have to do to make sure that we no longer call them colonias.
We have 30 seconds before we have to go to break, and I want to give you an opportunity, Ms. Carvajal, to respond. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so anyone can go to epcad.org and type in an address. I do that all the time for work. And if you look at the residents in the colonias, their property values went up, as did everyone else's. So they are paying more taxes, even when they don't have access to wastewater, to sewage lines, to paved roads. The same, like as I said before, in the South Side, the poorest neighborhoods, everyone's taxes have gone up. And we're pushing people into asking for deferrals if they qualify for them, which means that the county and the city don't even collect taxes until the person passes away or sells their home. That is not a good way to run the county. We cannot push people into predatory tax loans, into deferrals, into not doing improvements to their homes because they can't afford them. We need to really look back at how we can do this in a more fair way, and maintaining at least the same current tax rate or going somewhere in the middle would have done all of the things that we want to do for the colonias, as well as not pushing the very colonia residents to paying more taxes.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. As we go to break, once again, we ask El Pasoans how they feel about commissioners giving themselves a pay raise and raising your taxes. We'll be right back.
Although they're doing this, I do not personally agree with it. I think that money should be going towards more proper towards like better funding school lunches for students from middle schools and high schools and stuff like that.
This summer, happiness is a new Chevy. You can go farther, tow more, and bring along everyone you love. Your road to happiness begins in a new Chevy. Get 1.9% financing on all 2023 Silverado 1500 Crew Cab LT TurboMax pickups, or get $4,500 total cash allowance. Chevy drives Texas. Find new roads.
Moving forward requires knowing what's on the road ahead. As energy demand continues to rise, we're increasing our U.S. oil and gas production, and we're working to do it responsibly, like at our Gulf of Mexico facilities, which are some of the world's lowest carbon intensity producing operations. Providing affordable, reliable, ever cleaner energy so everyone can follow their own road. That's energy in progress.
The future of the law firm is so exciting because we have such a great team. We've worked so hard over the last 26 years. I am so grateful to have such an amazing team of people that embrace El Paso and live that El Paso mentality of stepping up and taking care of our families first. If you get hurt in an auto accident and you come to us, you don't have to worry about your case anymore. We are going to get you what you are legally entitled to recover, no matter what.
Every team,
dreams of greatness. But only one will make history. The CW is your new home for college football as we team up with the ACC to bring you 13 electrifying games. Saturdays will be legendary.
ACC football kicks off Saturday, September 9th on the El Paso Las Cruces CW.
Welcome back to this third and final segment of ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Joining me again is County Judge Ricardo Samaniego and Veronica Carvajal from Austin. Now, County Judge, when defending the pay raises and for yourself and commissioners, you said you were doing it to bring quality people to run the county. That's the initial argument that you gave. This is an elected office. Those who run for the position already know what the pay is. So why would they need that sort of incentive, the more pay?
We talked a little bit, but once again, that's a small fraction of the reason. What I want to be held accountable is not that we increased the taxes, but what we did with those taxes. I want to be held accountable a year from now to say, what did you do with those $34 million? And you're going to be very impressed and surprised because we're going to bring more companies in. We're going to be more successful as an organization. The idea that just don't tax and everything's going to be okay when we have inflation, when we have all of these things that we need to do. You have to invest in the county and apologize. We haven't done it in 4 years, but there comes a point where it catches up on us. We have to repair things that are going to be much less expensive right now than if we wait for them. We're going to be paying 10 times more for 3 years from now because that air conditioner we didn't fix is now we got to replace it with a new air conditioner. Those are the things that we look at. And, you know, I'm very grateful because I'm qualified. You know, I don't know if most people understand, but my title is CEO/judge. People focus on the judge, but I'm actually a chief executive officer for the county. If you compare what I would make as a CEO of any other organization, it would be just, it's ridiculous, the difference of what. So you have a very qualified candidate. I've been in business, I've been in mental health, I've done everything that I can. So I'm not justifying at all my increase, but what I'm telling you, I'm just fortunate that you're going to get some results that you wouldn't see otherwise.
Let me ask you this. Is this a done deal? Is this pay increase going to go through? Or is there anything that taxpayers, voters can say, hey, look, you know, I'm against it, and would it be taken into consideration?
Well, we've already voted, obviously, so it's going to take action, and you've got...
Is there anything taxpayers can do, though?
And you've got 3 commissioners that voted for the increase and voted for the $34 million that we could use as properly and as efficient as we can. And I believe that there's solidarity in saying we're committed. We're probably not going to get an increase for the next 3 years.
I'm going to repeat my question if you don't mind. Is there anything taxpayers can say or do to make you all change your mind?
It would have to go to court, and we would have to be the ones that someone would reverse the decision. If somebody says, you know, I'd like to reverse the decision, and then we're going to vote for it. But I think if you see...
So it can be challenged?
Yes, somebody can, Commissioner Holguin can bring it up and say, I'd like to challenge it, and we're going to vote. We're not going to flip-flop. You know, we're very dedicated and committed to making decisions. So it's not like a decision that we decide, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make that decision. We were adamant that we were going to get this county to the next level and bring the best companies in here to take the burden off the property taxpayers. So I think we're committed to take that decision and stand for it.
Ms. Carvajal, if so many people are against the pay raises, is there anything that you can tell our viewers they can do, try to turn that around, or do you think the county judge has been pretty much convincing enough that taxpayers are now accepting the argument that our county leaders deserve that pay raise?
I recommend that people, again, go to epcat.org to see property values, and also that they watch the commissioners' meeting on YouTube so they can see the arguments that were made, especially by Commissioner Ileana Holguin, who said, look, we've actually done well with these tax rates without increasing the tax rates in the past. This is about really an exaggeration of the tax rate. Again, they had 4 different options. They went with the highest one. And to not be apologetic at all about the what this means in terms of the salary increases in in the context of picking the highest tax rate, right? Sergio Coronado saying, well, it's okay if we have reserves. Well, guess what? The rest of us don't always have reserves. And so to not think about scaling things back and seeing how we're doing in December or January, when all of the taxes come in and other revenue comes in, I think it was just imposing an expense on people when they can least afford it. The pandemic affected us not only in terms of loss of income, but also in the increased values of the homes. That alone increases your tax, the taxes that you have to pay. Add to that the highest tax rate that you could have chosen before going to the voters, and it is insulting. And I am so disappointed with the fact that there is no apology. All we're getting is trying to justify what happened, but there is no real apology. There is no real empathy. We're asking them to stand in our shoes, but obviously we can afford very different shoes, and so our realities are very different.
Let me ask you one thing. The county judge brought up something very interesting because the lone dissenting vote was by Commissioner Holguin, and the judge says, well, if you really don't want that pay raise, you can donate it back. Since you are speaking on her behalf, would Ms. Holguin be willing to do that?
We did not talk about that particular point, but I do know that she has done her best to communicate to her constituents through her newsletter and in other means about how disappointed she was in this and how she will continue to fight for the county residents and, again, the city residents, all of the people who are taxed, so that this money is spent the best way that it can be. Now that this is done, it seems that unless, I mean, I don't know if the county judge is speaking for all of the remaining commissioners, but it could be that they vote again and that they decide to not give themselves this high of a pay increase, again, because it is coupled with them choosing the highest rate to tax us at. They could have, staff told them, if you go with the current rate, if you go with something in the middle, you will still have revenue. You will still be able to do these projects, and yet they chose to go with the highest tax rate available to them. And that's really where the unfairness has really set off this firestorm of criticism.
Ms. Veronica Carvajal, County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, thank you so much for taking time on this Sunday evening to talk to us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Good night y buenas noches.
Thank you for watching ABC